Hey, so earlier this year, I predicted that Adobe would start to incorporate generative AI into its products. A couple months back, they debuted Firefly, which was their entry into generative AI imagery. And now they have incorporated it into Photoshop. You can download the beta version of Photoshop and try it out. But basically, you can take an existing image and make a selection um, and enter a prompt to do something. So for purposes of speed, I'm going to kind of uh, skip ahead to what I've already done. But basically, I selected a rectangle and I asked it to make a window into a mirror, a framed mirror reflecting an urban sunset during the golden hour. Now I'm realizing now that I've left and kind of come back, let me deselect here. Okay, it does. Here's the prompt. It sort of saves the prompt that I made. And when you do a prompt, it'll give you 3 variations, which is a little weird because all the AI things usually do 4, but in here it does 3. And so you can navigate through them here. And I was like, well, that one's pretty cool. And you can see it's adding like lighting, shadow around here on the wall. Um, it's not perfect. This one's wonky. This one's, meh. But this one came out pretty cool. And, I could hit generate here again, and it'll come up with 3 more. I could change the prompt, tweak the prompt, and it would come up with some more. So it's interesting to explore how this can be used. There we go. Here's 3 more. And these are kind of cool. Again, it's taken into account lighting. There's shadow here. It's kind of convincing. And it's actually sampling the existing background and incorporating that in. If I turn off this background layer, you can see it has sort of extended out around and used some of that existing background in the new rendering to make it feel seamless. Now, of course, that does mean if I wanted to take it and move it, kind of like this one, although the angle's off here, you can see it's sort of angling in space. As soon as I take it and move it, it's not, it's taking that background as part of it. So that is something to be aware of, that if I did this and then I liked that and I wanted to move it, that's going to create some potential problems that have to be solved. And I can't just regenerate that same exact thing. If I wanted to, say, move it over here, I'd have to erase the background, manually go back in and add the shadow. In the grand scheme of things, doing things in Photoshop, for those of us who work in it, not that big a deal, but just something to keep in mind. Here's another one. So I took this photo and did a couple different things here. Let's see. Oh yeah. So I was trying to get someone sitting at this table. So first attempt, I sort of drew a box up here and said African American graphic designer in stylish denim jacket is seated here from the waist up. I was trying to get it to put it from the waist up. Didn't really work. Then I seem to have lost the layer. Oh, here it is. I extended my box down onto the table, and it actually took that into account. It's got arms resting on the table. That is pretty amazing. The faces are all jacked up. The faces, it's not doing good on faces, I'm seeing. So compared to things like Midjourney, which is amazing at portraits, seems like they still got a lot of work to do on that front. But the fact that it is taking into account the surrounding area and the perspective is pretty amazing. But I wasn't really getting what I wanted there, so I was like, well, let me try and get a computer sitting there instead. Boom. Look at that. Was a chair, now there's a computer sitting there. Again, it figured out the perspective pretty good. And then for fun, I thought, let's see if I can get a waterfall coming out of one of these pictures. Took several attempts to get something that was close to what I was after, which this prompt of mock-up of a photo, oh no, that's not it. A waterfall is running down out of a white framed portal and down the wall in a torrent. Water wall. One of the things it generated was sort of in that. A lot of things it kept trying to keep in the picture frame. You know, it was creating some interesting art, which is also cool. But I was trying to get it to have water running down the wall. Took me about 3 attempts of prompting to get there. So that was kind of cool. And again, it's taken this chair into account. See that? Now it sort of moved the chair a little. Now it seems like the chair has turned some. But pretty interesting. So again, if we take away the background, you can see it's sampling the background in these. So if it was like, hey, can you move the computer a little to the right? It might be hard to replicate that exact result because I can use the same prompt, draw a square further over, and I might get a bunch of different things instead. In fact, let's try. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to turn that layer off. I'm going to make a selection box. Let's put it halfway on top of some other stuff. Actually, let's come down here and see how it deals with that. I'm going to use the same exact prompt. And survey says, so it takes 30, 45 seconds, maybe a minute. It's thinking about this one harder. So I threw more of a curveball at it, I think. Well, that's getting there. But again, you know, that feels right. It fits in the lighting. It's matching up. It's sort of keying the lighting. That's believable. But again, not same prompt, different results. If I wanted to just move that computer to the right a little bit, I'd have to do a bunch of work. But still pretty amazing that we can do this. So there we go. A couple more things. I took this one and I wanted to, first I tried to get it to put a knife on there, but there are safety filters, and so knife apparently is not safe language. It won't let me do that. So there are practical things that get in the way from a safety standpoint. Obviously, it probably wouldn't let me put a gun on there either. But I said, okay, well, let's try and do a portal into a vegetable garden with a top-down view. And look at that. It's, you know, creating a realistic, I thought this was the best one. But even this, look at that, breaking the edge, as we like to do for convincingness, right? All very interesting. So we can see, again, how it's incorporating the background. I think that's a very important detail. If you start getting into multiple layers of things, that can come into play. So I took this headshot of mine. Shout out to Marissa Moldon Photography, who took this at a Creative Mornings a while back. Removed the background, and then generated some, you know, brightly colored geometric shaped backgrounds with noisy gradients and dance party lighting. All right, so had a few different things here. It's like, oh, this one's kind of cool. And then I wanted to see if I could change what I was wearing. So when I tried just like selecting tight, you know, the subject and then going in by hand and removing my head from the selection, it, well, first off, if I had all of me selected, it replaces all of me. And because of how it seems to be working, it sort of came in from the edges of the selection. So I got like shrunk and skinified, right? Kind of weird. Again, the faces are like kind of weird. So then I tried doing just the jacket. And again, I had myself selected and then took out the head and tried to like change what I was wearing. But again, it like made me too skinny. So then I just drew a blob out bigger outside to give it more to play with, and then removed my head. And that seemed to work better. Now, because it's sampling the background, if I then decided, oh, I want to change the background, well, then I ran into this, right? So we have to think about how we want to stack our layers and like painting, work from the background forward. If we were going to play with the background, we'd probably want to get that where we want it first. And then if I wanted to change what I was wearing, do that next. Because it does make these smart objects. So if I wanted to get rid of this, then I suppose I'd have to rasterize this layer. So it's not a smart object anymore. Though it doesn't seem like that actually worked. And we're getting there. But of course, now part of what it did was, in doing that, was getting a hold of other parts of me that it wasn't using, getting rid of those. Yeah. So, a little more work. I'd have to select just my head, isolate that, get rid of my body on this layer, and then we would be there to having completely changed this, right? So I could come here, select subject, and then manually come in and unselect my head, which I'm going to do quick and dirty just for demonstrations purposes, right? And then I could delete that. That's pretty good. Probably would need to clean it up some if I zoomed in, but that is some of what you can now do with Photoshop. Pretty cool.